All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting episode of Beckn and Beyond, where the frontier of AI meets the pulse of real-world applications today. I am Ravi, and I will be your host for tonight. A little bit about myself. I am the head of architecture and technology ecosystem at the Foundation for Interoperability in Digital Economy, a volunteer at Beckn Open Collective, and as well as the co-author of the Beckn Protocol. Tonight, we are going to delve deep into the dynamic world of AI trends, an area that is fast reshaping our future right before our very eyes. Joining me today is a luminary in the field of generative AI, Bala Parthasarathy. His expertise has not only guided numerous AI initiatives, but has also been instrumental in advising us here at Beckn. Over to you, Bala, for you to introduce yourself, and then we can kick off.
Thanks, Ravi. Thanks to the entire Beckn community for having me. It's absolutely my pleasure to be here. Let me kick off with a little bit of introduction on my own background, and that will provide some context for what we're going to talk about. So whether it's fate or just plain luck, I've been a part of sort of multiple tech revolutions, starting in the early 90s when I did my first startup in the Silicon Valley. So I passed out of IIT Madras, some of you know, and I went to the Silicon Valley, just absolutely being in the right place at the right time. And my first startup was a company which we sold. It was an actual licensed software company, like physically we used to sell on DVDs and before that even diskettes actually. And then again, I was very lucky to be there in the internet revolution. As many of you probably know, I started Snapfish along with a couple of others. We had a good exit, sold it to Hewlett-Packard. And then I came back to India, worked with Mr. Nandan Nilekani and Pramod and Sujit at the Aadhaar project for a couple of years. And that's right when sort of the mobile and the cloud revolution took off. So this time around, I started a fund called Prime Ventures. It's a venture fund. It's about $250 million AUM right now, based out of Bangalore. And we have a number of very good companies in the cloud and mobile space. And then a few years later, I went and did another startup called MoneyTap. It's now called Frio. And so I've been sort of part of these sort of massive technology changes. So about a year and a half ago, when I saw GPT very early versions come out, I felt like this was not only going to be the next one, but I also felt this was even bigger than everything else that we have seen before. And I would love to talk about why I think it's bigger and why I think there are just so many opportunities here. And as a part of that, along with Mr. Nandan and a few others, we have started something called People+AI, and it's a nonprofit initiative. And our only goal is to make sure we propagate AI in the Indian ecosystem, in the Indian context, and also give a big boost to initiatives like DPI, like Beckn and others. So thanks again, Ravi, for having me, and really excited about talking about AI.
Absolute pleasure to have you here. So just to set a little bit of context, in today's session, we are going to be exploring the evolving landscape of AI. Focusing on how AI, especially generative AI, is revolutionizing startups, empowering small businesses, opening new avenues for entrepreneurs. But that's not all. We will also provide some insights into how Beckn as a protocol intersects with these advancements. So without further ado, let's dive into the heart of innovation and conversation. So Bala, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us. To kick things off, could you shed some light on how generative AI is transforming the startup landscape, particularly in the tech sector? And following that, we're also eager to hear your thoughts on the practical ways small businesses can harness the power of generative AI and the unique opportunities it presents for new entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. So before commenting on the AI, let me make one general comment. And again, this comes from my past experience. Whenever there's such a massive tectonic shift happening, the good news is that it suddenly flattens the playing field, right? So when, for example, internet happened, and Ravi, maybe you can double click on this a little bit more later. But when internet happened, all the people who were experts before suddenly all became like newbies, and all the newbies had a level playing field. So anybody could actually jump in and become an expert very quickly.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with mobile apps. Same thing happened with cloud, right? So the way you would do client server, for example, was different from the way you would think about cloud. A whole set of new frameworks came up, things like React and so on and so forth didn't exist before, right? Now that's kind of obviously everybody takes that for granted. AI is something similar. So whether or not you are AI expert doesn't matter. We're all AI experts right now. So even in a session like this, I might know a couple of things here and there, but we are all learning. And that is sort of the best news for everybody. Uh, Coming to a very specific thing on how it's going to change the texture of startups and how it's happening. Um, I think this is a very sort of multi-faceted question. Let me try to answer in a couple of ways. And we will maybe later on talk about what startups are fundable by VCs and what is not, and which areas to focus on if you are a startup. So we'll come to that in a separate section of how a venture capitalist looks at AI. But in terms of actually people who are already doing stuff, so there are multiple ways AI is changing the face of startups. So the most obvious one is productivity. And I'm sure almost everybody on the call is already on a GPT-4. So, they've subscribed to ChatGPT. If not, you should absolutely pay the premium and subscribe to it. Um, and not only ChatGPT, of course, there's Copilot, which Microsoft has launched, is also almost equally good, as is Perplexity in its own way. So these are like absolutely new tools. If you have not used, you should be using them, as well as like Copilot X, even though it's not applicable to everybody. But let me break it down a little bit. So the most obvious use case for AI, which almost all of us are already doing, is productivity. So the productivity gains vary depending on which part of the job you are. But almost everybody is using AI for in some kind of productivity. So more specifically, if you're a programmer, Sam Altman says that OpenAI is seeing a 3x productivity. I've heard developers talk about a 10x productivity. I think the answer depends on which part of the dev cycle you are and how exactly the nature of your particular dev system. But you ought to be seeing a minimum in my own startups that I've invested in or I run. We see at least like a 1.5, 2x productivity overall. In QA, for example, the productivity is much higher. So depending on wherever you are in the dev cycle, you ought to be a super programmer right now. Uh, that's kind of just to kick the ball off. Right? This is just the very beginning. The tools are not perfect. I know Copilot X is not good enough. There's a lot of bugs to be ironed, but this is sort of a base level productivity you ought to be seeing if you're a programmer. If you're a product manager, you ought to see much more because product management is actually pretty well done with Gen AI. So whether you're writing documents, you're fine tuning it, you're challenging, GPTs already should be a co-pilot right now. And so is for marketing. My marketing team just sent me a video that they completely generated with Gen AI. And this would not have been possible, but they put together, a collation of Midjourney and Suno.ai, where they created actually a rap song for our ads, and they put it all together with Pika, and they actually put together a video which would have taken them, I don't know, God knows how long and how much it would have cost. So again, very early days. This is not like by any means perfect, but I can tell you from my experience that this is how early stage looks like. When I did web, the stuff used to crash all the time. Things were not working. But in a matter of a year or two, the environment completely changed, and I suspect that we're going to see much higher much higher transition to being a very very usable product probably in the next 6 months to a year. Let me pause here, and Ravi, I would love to know sort of what your experience is and what you think.
Absolutely. I think, unfortunately, I was introduced a little late to the overall landscape of AI, relatively late. I mean, I know that it's been just a year, but I think probably I was probably 2 or 3 months late because I think we were working on Beckn and trying to sort of get the protocol off and everything. But I think what I personally felt when I saw OpenAI was an immediate boost in the productivity of our engineering team, right? And I think a boost, and also surprisingly a little bit of a resistance, where understanding AI and and actually getting things off the ground, right? The initial push was a little, there was a little bit of friction, because I remember some developers even felt like understanding, learning AI and then using AI to code was more of a task, right? So that it took a little bit of time to sort of change the mental model, saying that this is not a task, this is, it is going to be very soon an essential life skill, right? For you, it's going to be as ubiquitous as your mobile phone or the internet, where AI is, it's going to completely change the way you compute, right? Where because what I've also noticed is that uh, especially in the early versions of GPT, you need to be really good at English, right? And I felt that that was a sort of like a barrier for people to use AI effectively, especially from the engineering standpoint. That was a barrier to use AI to improve your coding skills, or sort of to write code or generate code and everything. So I think that also presents a very interesting sort of scenario. Today, yes, OpenAI, especially ChatGPT, is sort of leans towards, I may be wrong, but it sort of leans towards understanding English, right? I've also read places that, in 5 years, the most important language to, is going to be English if you want to know how to code, right? So that's, but is that, I'm just trying to understand, is that going to change? Are more languages going to be introduced, to make it easier for developers to adopt AI for code generation, especially, and for other, domains as well, right? Non-technical domains.
Some excellent point. I met with the chief operating officer of OpenAI in San Francisco a couple of months ago, and this was a topic we discussed. This is again, think of the whole thing as like a version 1.0. That's how ChatGPT is thinking, OpenAI is thinking about it, right? So they just went and scraped the internet, which is 80% English. And the Indian languages are particularly underrepresented there. But what they are clear in their mission is, says, boss, give me data, give me your training, language, and we will make it happen. Now, this is a part of the initiative called AI for Bharat, which we've been working on as a part of sort of the Nilakani Foundations with IIT Madras to create Indian language data sets, right? This is all open source. So basically, and we have a fairly large corpus now. So this is going to change significantly, and companies like Sarvam.ai, which is which some of you might have seen my podcast over there with us at CNBC Money Control. But what they are specifically focused on is Indic language sets, right? To solve this problem. So this is a very easy problem for from a technical point of view for neural nets to solve. It is just a question of data, but not just data, but data in the right format, for example, right? So right now the tokenizer that GPT uses, right, is a standard tokenizer that doesn't recognize Indian languages. So it's very inefficient. It's like 4x more. It takes 4x more to encode a particular character than a normal than a word equal enough a word than a native tokenizer. But for example, Sarvam has built that tokenizer, right? Which is taking Indian languages and making it much more, the tokenizing more efficient. Because tokenizing is the core of the beginning of the journey of any large language model. So these are things which are improvements, but I think everybody is going to do this. It's not, this part is very, I wouldn't say, I don't want to say easy to do, but it's already coming. For example, Meta has promised that they will have 1,000 languages. Right.
Right.
So, so this is not only Indian languages, like all the languages in the world, right? So there is a big race going on, Ravi, in terms of getting these LLMs to go beyond English. So I think we'll be coding in Hindi or Tamil or Malayalam or any language very soon.
Right. I mean, that was going to be my sort of follow-up questions, that would you encourage developers and startup companies today to focus on LLMs other than just that is powering OpenAI, and also try to improve those models as well? I know that OpenAI is trained on like more than 100 billion data points at the same time, and LLMs, the next best one, right? It's a few hundred millions, right? So I'm just trying to understand that should small startups companies should actually focus on building better LLMs to even compete with OpenAI, or is it a game that has already been won? I mean, like, I'm just trying to understand here.
No, it's a great question, and it's a very profound question actually, because as India, right? Like for example, we have completely given up our sovereignty on Gmail, for example, right? So the whole country runs, including the government runs on Gmail, or anything, PowerPoint, right? All of that is basically we are all using software from everywhere, from the US, which is fine. But the question is that should we do the same thing with AI?
Yeah.
There are different answers depending on who you ask, but the short of it, at least for this audience, is that I don't think we should be building foundational LLMs because, first of all, they're very, very expensive. So unless you have, $50 million minimum, or ideally maybe $200 million in your pocket, you cannot be building a foundational LLM. You should not even think about it. There are people like Sarvam who are going to do that in some versions of it, but even they are building off of Llama 2, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they're all taking off of something and then building from it. There are companies like Mistral in France, for example, and Germany has got its own LLM. So there are a few who are British. UK has got its own LLM. Japan is building it. I'm not sure that is the right thing for us. Plus, the open source LLMs are very good. Llama 2 is the standard right now for open source. And OpenAI is, as of now, the standard for closed LLMs. There are very good LLMs, so which are others as well. Cohere is very good. Oracle Cloud, for example, is integrated some of this. So there are the hyperscalers, whether it's Azure, whether it's AWS, whether it's OCI, Oracle Cloud, they've all already integrated and packaged it for us. So what we should figure out, when we had a chat with Jensen, for example, who's the CEO and founder of NVIDIA, he was visiting us in Bangalore, and his thing was very clear. You guys, boss, please go build applications. Like you don't need to go build rework the foundation again. But that's his point of view. We don't need to take that point of view. I'm saying that is, but it is a big budget number, that's for sure.
Understood. No. Thanks a lot for those insightful responses, Bala. It's fascinating. I think how our entire way of thinking itself is changed, and it's actually important to also have some practical considerations when when we are sort of building something new. But yes, I think it's pretty clear that AI is not just a tool, but it's a transformative force across the various scales of businesses, and opening up a plethora of opportunities for innovation and growth. But let's move on to the next sort of phase of our session, right? This is a topic that is equally crucial in the AI landscape, right? This is something which I think you would relate to a lot. This is the world of venture capital and the emerging trends in the AI startups. With your extensive experience as a venture capitalist, you have a unique vantage point in observing the ebb and the flow of innovations in this domain. Could you share with us some of the most promising or innovative trends you have observed in AI startups recently? And I'm particularly curious about how these trends are shaping the future of our industry, and especially some in India. Additionally, in the context of an investment strategy, what would you look at, right? What are the specific qualities or factors that you would make an AI startup a compelling investment, right? What makes you say hey, this is something that I would invest in?
I'll tell you the common perspective, and then I'll tell you my perspective.
Sure.
To be honest with you, usually the Indian investors are pretty savvy. So when they see a global trend, they latch onto it, right? Whether it is a fintech, edtech, crypto, I mean, for good or bad, I'm saying, but we quickly grab onto something. But I've never seen the investors more confused than they are about AI. Okay, so the reason is the following. right? So if you think of AI and you think of like multiple layers, so there is sort of think of the base layer as the sort of the foundational models which we touched upon. Should you build a foundational model? Yes, there are a few which are being built. Sarvam is building one. Krutrim is building one. Like Ola is building one. I'm sure some of the large conglomerates in India will build their own models, right? Like a Tata or a Geo or somebody. Uh, that is like the model level. The next level is the infrastructure, right? Like the hyperscalers. Now here, 10 years ago, maybe it might have made sense. But today we already have, we have GCP, we have Oracle Cloud, we have Azure, right? Obviously, we have AWS. So the cloud providers are already here established in India. Maybe there might be a room for one or two very specific, but it's kind of hard to build a business there. And again, there might be some big guys like a Geo or somebody who can maybe have a play there. But from a startup point of view, I'm not sure that's a investable thing unless you have a compelling advantage. I've not seen too many plays there. The next layer are sort of platforms or tools, right? Can you build the next Copilot X, right? For example, there's a company called Codium.ai in Israel. Check it out. It's an amazing startup. So they're building, for example, an automated QA tool using AI, right? So your test coverage, it's a really pretty cool tool. Now they are funded, so they're doing well. So there are specific areas like that, like developer tools and so on and so forth, but people can build. There are a few plays coming out of India, and those are very, very strong techies. So I would look at those plays, and those some of them have gotten funded. There's some of them are still under the wraps. So these are very specific, very highly technical people trying to build a set of tool sets, scaffolding, so on and so forth. But this is largely being done in the US. And it's a very shaky boat, right? So, for example, there are like 80 different vector databases, right? So, RAG is a very popular way of
Mhm.
building AI applications, a tool for building the AI applications. There
Right.
is Pinecone, there are a whole bunch of guys, Chroma. So, a whole bunch of guys are trying to do that. But then, every 2 months, OpenAI does a launch and then they subsume half of the functionality inside, right? So it's a very tricky one to do, especially sitting in India. Now, if you go beyond that and look at productivity, right? So this is like a automatic PowerPoint generation, automatic email generation, right? Automatic sales CRM tools. So I think there is opportunity here. But again, you have to be very specific and clever. Um,
Correct.
then there is actually application. So this is productivity, but then the productivity will be like, Zoom will have an AI button, right? And they are obviously can summarize the conversation in this meeting better than, somebody else who's writing a third-party plugin. But the real opportunity for India is in the application layer. That's number one opportunity. The number two opportunity is in the simple services business. And I think this is the here and now opportunity. Like we discussed, programming you can go 3x to maybe 10x. So you can be the next TCS or next Infosys, where you can build something at like 1/10 the cost, right? Or maybe 1/5 the cost, right? This is and this is a more than a small trend. I'm happy to double click and talk about this more. But there's a whole area called malleable software, which is emerging, which
Right.
is basically doing something like this. And it's a very exciting trend. I urge all of you to think about it. How software should be built. But what do you think, Ravi? What do you see? How do you think, for example, Beckn can benefit from AI?
Yeah, I think since so if you look at the entire ecosystem of Beckn, right? We visualize Beckn as a sort of a set of layered the entire Beckn ecosystem as a set of layers, which sort of the bottom layer is the specification. Then there is the next layer is is the community that is built around Beckn, right? The community enablement part, the open source part, and the third layers are the core mandatory sort of infrastructure elements that comprise of a backend network. And then on top of that we have all the platforms and the solutions applications. So from what I've observed, each and every layer uh, I think can leverage AI to sort of evolve at the same time, sort of provide innovations. I think I really liked your talk about how tools can be built around backend, because I think I heard somewhere recently that if there is a gold rush and if you want to become a billionaire, sell shovels, right? I think that really resonates with me a lot, because tooling has been an essential component of any ecosystem sort of building which is built on some sort of a core technology, right? Especially, let's say, I personally have seen and worked on some projects where where AI is used to build the spec itself and evolve the specifications itself, right? As a documentation generator to develop, to generate developer documentation, and to also help sort of build these tiny adapters and libraries, transform, like for example, especially since Beckn is a technology agnostic protocol, it does require plugins and libraries and softwares for all those popular languages out there like Python and Node.js, etc. Right? And especially AI becomes very useful, but when I'm writing code in, let's say, Python, right, I can immediately transform that library into Rust or into Node.js, into JavaScript or anything else. So that suddenly boosts my entire portfolio of sort of tools out there. Second, as you had mentioned, whenever the second, when participants are actually becoming onboarded onto Beckn sort of enabled networks like ONDC or Honest or UEI or any other network like that, there is a certain sort of friction when it comes to actually implementing the protocol and actually plugging in. That sort of is enabled through a process of certification and compliance, right? And I think this is an area where AI can especially be useful because it can sort of help generate a lot of these test cases, a lot of these stress, which will help stress test the platforms that are actually trying to join ONDC or any other protocol enabled networks. I think that's the onboarding part where AI can become super useful. Then next is, now that the, let's say, the infrastructure has been laid off, right? The discovery, ordering, fulfillment, postal, all of the infrastructure, the core mandatory infrastructure has now been set up. Now, when you start building applications on top of it, that's where AI shows its like true potential, right? Because if just imagine if every catalog is available to you, right, across domains, right? It could be mobility, it could be retail, it could be healthcare, etc. AI can actually build, be used to build really personalized recommendation engines, right? Or even indexing catalogs for that matter. We may be looking at a world where indexing is not even required now, right? Where you just need to vectorize your entire catalog of services, and the AI will provide the right catalog of services when when it receives a search request, right, on the network. So I think the real power of AI does lie in the application layer of Beckn, while it is also helping enabling all the other lower layers of a Beckn enabled ecosystem as well. Applications can actually now use AI to create more personalized offerings, to provide more contextual experiences and even workflows, right, depending upon your profile or your personal preferences, etc. So I think it's a completely blue ocean out there, and I think we have just scratched the tip of the iceberg over here. So yeah, I think it's tremendous potential for Beckn to work with AI.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that, Ravi, because fundamentally Beckn is a transaction protocol,
Yeah,
and that ensures integrity of transactions done in a not only in a secure way, but but since everything is signed, right? It's an honest way of doing a transaction, and that is the beauty of Beckn is in its simplicity, and the reason I think is complementary to AI is that with the large language models, uh, the process of discovery, right? The process of translating, what one person is thinking as what they're trying to express in a catalog, it becomes very natural. Whether you can talk to it in Hindi, right? And somebody can, read off the catalog in Malayalam in some ways, right? Voice is coming in a very, very big way. So the most thing I'm most excited about is multimodal right now.
yeah,
Right? Multimodal is basically voice, image, everything is coming together, right? So you don't even need to type, right? You can
yeah,
speak in whatever language you want, right? This is like in Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy. There's a thing called a babel fish, right? Anybody can
yeah,
talk to anybody, right? If you have this fish in your ear, for some of you here who might have read the book, so it's kind of like that, right? So and and yet you have a layer of Beckn, which is making sure that the transaction happen is recorded, right? It's stored in a ledger, and everybody believes it. So I think the interplay between these two is got I think a huge potential.
Absolutely,
I hope
absolutely.
a lot of startups come out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, I think networks like ONDC that are also trying to enable these small sellers and trying to expand the reach of commerce from 8% to a 25% market, penetration of commerce in India. I think language compatibility is going to become a big, factor in achieving that level of scale. At the same time, I think since Beckn is sort of agnostic to form factor, right? Which means that backend can be implemented not just on a smartphone, but also on a feature phone or a kiosk, or could be on on any other device, or on a wearable device, or a smart refrigerator. Tomorrow, I think it's going to now sort of standardize the whole landscape of transactions, and then the true innovation is only going to come out in how well you provide the customer experience, right? Because it's no longer going to be essential to maintain a transaction infrastructure or an e-commerce platform that may be just a bunch of software players that are providing those interfaces, and you are just only working on the experience and the workflows. I think that's where I think AI is going to play a crucial role. Great. So
I agree.
now, yeah, absolutely. And so now let's shift our focus to a topic that sort of resonates with many of our viewers. It makes some people very excited and some people very nervous as well. That is the impact of AI on the job market, right? We have been hearing a lot of rumors that AI is going to now, take away so many jobs. Some people are saying it's going to create new jobs, etc. And so, as we integrate more and more AI into our industries and into our entire, day-to-day activities, the landscape of employment is bound to evolve. So, Bala, I would love to hear your thoughts on the delicate balance AI will strike between creating new job opportunities and displacing the existing ones. So, which sectors do you think will be most affected? Moreover, in this rapidly changing scenario, what skills should individuals focus on acquiring? And how should our educational institutions adapt to effectively prepare students and pupils for this AI augmented future that we are envisioning?
It's a pretty deep question, actually. Um, Let me try to answer it at like two levels.
Sure.
So, so a lot of people have been talking about it. There's a lot of studies and work done on it. Um, so first, let me actually give you what IMF has actually done some really good research on it. I'll post a link to the IMF research paper that I'm going to refer to. But let me tell you what IMF's worldview on this is. Okay, so I'm just going to throw out a bunch of numbers. So that, and then and the second part layer of it, I'm going to unpack it and talk about my view on it, right? With more India, what do we think? Like on a day-to-day, hey, okay, this is all great, but what do you want me to do? What should my kids study? Right? I have three kids, so it's a practical question for me as well. Like, what should they study, right? Should they take up programming or not? Right? These are like practical questions. So I'll come to that in the second layer. So first, let me give you the big picture. So IMF basically just put out a report, and basically what they're saying is that worldwide, 40% of the people, AI will touch your job in some way. Okay. That number is higher, 60% in advanced countries. And for countries like India, it's 40%. And for countries in Africa and other parts of the world, it's 28. Low income countries is 28%. That's roughly, let's say 30%. So 60, 40, 30 is like the number. But what we need to, from India, we need to say broadly 40%. Okay. So, for example, the areas which it won't touch, right? If you're doing trade, right? If you're like a physically, sitting in a retail shop, it's not going to touch you that quickly, right? So the softer white collar jobs will be touched much, much more. Okay. Uh, and so the Western countries are actually going to get be touched much faster than us in this case. Okay. Uh, the of the people who are touched, right? So about in the emerging markets, so the productivity boost, the people who you're going to find like suddenly AI is a friend and not an enemy. It's about 16%. Okay. So out of the 40%, 16% are going to be positively impacted and 24% are going to be negatively impacted. Right. So the positive impact are things like, for example, accountability is important, like a surgeon, right? Or interpersonal skills is important, like a doctor, right? AI will be assisting them, right? And potentially programming. Okay, so I'll come to programming in this second part of the discussion, but that could be a positive or a negative. If you are not adapting to this, it's definitely going to be a negative. I can tell you that. But that's kind of how they're breaking it up. And for people who are like a little bit of a rote job, like telemarketing, customer service, it's going to be a negative. Okay, already it's happening. I can give you more statistics if you want. But also, not only the jobs are being automated, but reshoring is happening. People are taking the job back to the US. They're saying, "Was why do I need so many people in India?" So
Mm.
there are definitely some negative trends we're seeing already, and that's going to be
Sure.
important. It's going to be a big problem for us. Okay, so this is sort of the big picture from an IMF.
Mhm.
Let me post a link to that report. I posted it, so those of you can go take a look at it. It's got a few more things, like obviously the older workers are going to be harder to adapt, right? Uh, and and one other point they make is that the employment ladder, right? People usually take a low-level job, and then after like 10 years, they get to a high-level job. AI is unfortunately going for the low-level job first, right? The
Yeah,
things which are more rote. Okay.
sure.
So this is sort of the IMF big picture Vala report. Practically, what do I think? India, like, what do I tell my kids? Like, what should you do? Um, I think for the class of, I think the programmer is are going to be divided. Okay, so I think those who are not adapting, in my view, there is going to be a class of sort of power programmers, power product managers, um, and these people are going to be like 10x programs. These are going to be like a supermen or superwomen, right? Who are adapting this, who have learned the art, who are up on the latest tool, and suddenly you'll see a massive output from them, and their salaries will go up. I'm already
Mhm.
seeing this in some of my companies. Uh, and there are those who say, "Man, nahi hoga, what is applying? What is a big deal?" Right? This what the skeptics and the cynics, right? Especially the older people, I'm seeing this. They are going to find that, boss, like suddenly you are not needed. Okay, so that's what I think is going to happen. Uh, I don't think even machine learning, for example, right? People, it's the high data scientists. Even they are seeing the split, right? Because I don't think you need to build another model, right? You just need to know how to use an existing model, right?
Right.
So even they need to adapt. So I would say in the specifically in the context of programming, which is like tech people in this call, uh, those who adapt will thrive. Marketing for same thing, right? So there are people who are creative, writing, doing creatives. My team, I'm constantly urging them to do that. And by the way, I have the same reaction as you do. Like people are skeptical, but now basically I've forced them, right? And now that when they do it, they see the benefit. So
Okay.
that's how I think it's going to split.
No, I
That's
think
the short of it.
I personally sort of I think it's the initial friction that you need to get through. Something that I have noticed. I think you have to force yourself, especially for people that have been using legacy technology or were probably born in like the 80s. Like personally, I'm an 80s kid, so I had to rapidly adapt to changing technology. I think there is a certain level of discipline that you have to cultivate within yourself to make AI part of your daily life. Like, for example, today I have a question. Even though I know that AIs today hallucinate a lot and everything, I make it a habit to sort of, open up my phone and sort of going to Google and searching for what I want, especially questions where I want to learn about something rather than, trying to find a bunch of links. If I know exactly what I want, I go to Google. But if I don't know, if I want to learn about something, my first option is ChatGPT. I mean, for those people who don't probably know, I think ChatGPT has an app on the phone as well. I think you can use that. You don't always have to go to chat.openai.com. So I use that as my personal assistant. I do verify the information, the information that it gives me, especially where I want to see proper cited information. I go and verify that on Google as well. But I have noticed that slowly and slowly, I think that my mind has now trained itself to now start using an AI first approach to all aspects of my life. Right. I think it starts at the very base because I think nobody really taught us to use the smartphone. Right. right? I think it just became so ubiquitous. We saw everybody using it, and then slowly we started using it, and then we started using WhatsApp and the apps and everything. I think there is a certain level of that there's this small period where you need to actually train yourself to use AI, and after that it's very difficult to go back. Now it's almost impossible for me to sort of change that perspective. I think this is more from a personal journey, but what do you think? Do you think that especially company startups should have at least once in a while they should host these training programs, bring in some experts, and to help their staff, not just the technical staff but the non-technical staff also, to sort of use AI in whatever capacity?
Look, I think they should, and all of those things will help, of course. But I think the developer community in general, right, is self-driven, right? I mean, and the whole open source, everything happened not because some management guys decided that you must all do open source, right? It's a very organic. People went and saw value, and people started hacking.
Right.
And like when I said like this, there'll be a bimodal distribution between the super programmers' productivity and those who are kind of stuck in the world. Those who wait for people to train them will be waiting forever, because this thing is changing too fast, honestly.
Yeah.
Right? There are no experts, right? Literally, in the beginning of this call, I was telling you about like programmers, and I think I might have mentioned AlphaCode, right? So this is Google's AlphaCode 2. Is they beat in the programming contest. They were winning programming contest, right? And I'm just going to put this link as we're speaking. There is like this Codium fellows I talked about. Again, I have no connection with them. I'm not an investor in them, so I'm not trying to sell a one company. They just happened to send me an email, and they have launched an Alpha Codium, which is all open source, right? Which is beating, it's competing in programming contests and like beating people, right? And it's all open source. Go download it and play with it, right? So I think that drive of I'm going to start tinkering, right? I'm going to start like playing with it, especially if you have some tech knowledge, right? And even me, in fact, I'm telling my venture capital friends to say, please go build a GPT app, at least do something, right? Download and start building something for me using Gen AI. Use a OpenAI API token key, right? Learn how to use the key. It's all very simple. You don't need to know anything. Actually, you can kind of stumble your way through it, right?
Yeah.
Without knowing any programming, actually, right? And that is possible today, right? Uh, and those who kind of take that initiative and learn, obviously, not a, I'm a beginner, right? I've forgotten all my programming, but it's been a long time. But for those who actually are in the thing, those who play with it, keep in touch with the latest developments, because it's happening so fast. I don't think there is any formal trainer who knows more than you. I mean, it's moving so fast. And I just want to leave with one thing: the killer app right now, besides Chat GPT itself and maybe Perplexity, um, is coding. Okay, that's the killer app, because the large language models are particularly good at programming, more than anything else, more than email generation, more than image generation, more than diffusion, more stable diffusion, more than anything else. The coding models are the best models.
Absolutely. I think personally it'll take a little. I mean, what I've known is it takes a little time. I mean, originally I thought, hey, I can write this code in 10 minutes, but it took me like half an hour to find the correct prompt to generate that code. But that time will just get progressively lesser than where you will be able
That
to
is
write
correct.
like entire lines of code.
That's
Right.
right. These are teething troubles, right?
Yeah.
Again, and that's where you need to get in the thing early, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That'll be your advantage.
No, great. I think these perspectives are incredibly insightful. I think this is a good picture of a future where adaptation and skill development are very, very key towards adapting to this rapidly changing present. So as we approach the final segment of our discussion, I think let's just probably gaze towards a little more meta topics and into the future of AI. Beyond the realms of just generative AI, I think there is a horizon that is teeming with possibilities and questions about what comes next. So, Bala, could you share some of your thoughts on the future of AI beyond its current capabilities? Are we looking at AI systems capable of reasoning, debating, logic, or even taking actions on behalf of humans? Which means that it sort of leads us to a very crucial sort of topic in today's tech landscape, right? I think some of it we already talked about the concentration of AI in major corporations, but also considering the global reach of AI, how should we address the diversity of value systems across different regions and communities, given that these AI models are going to be evolved in different regions? I'm sure that today it's mostly concentrated in the US, but when different other countries, other regions across the globe incorporate their value systems and their sort of insights and their experiences and their data into large language models, how do you think we should address that kind of a diversity? How this diversity influence the development and global implementation of AI technologies?
Again, terrific question. Let me try to unpack the question in like two, three different ways. So one is sort of, you said, hey, will they take actions for me? And that's a very good question, because today the way we're using GPT is mostly information, right? Like, hey, write me an essay or whatever, summarize this document, right? Write me some piece of code, right? It's kind of some synthesizing information, right? I take a lot of bits and collate it. And again, for those who have not used Perplexity, I presume all of you are using it. Please use Perplexity. It's a IIT Madras founder. It's one of the hottest companies right now. Jeff Bezos is invested in it, and they're challenging Google, okay, on search. If you have not used it, please use it. But what these kind of companies are doing is that they are sort of going beyond synthesis, right? So one of the first early signs of this is a product called Rabbit. Have you guys, some of you might have seen it. It was one of the hottest products at CES. And again, I'm going to post a link to it.
Yeah.
You can go watch this video. It's a $200 product, right? It's
Yeah,
like
it's a
what,
tiny device size.
15,000 rupee product, right? And we need that in India, okay? Basically, I want my mother, who's 80 years old, to be talking in Tamil to a little box, right? And it should go and then do order on Amazon or order on Swiggy or do everything to it, right? It should already know that, and that's what they're trying to do. I think we're going to see Indian versions of this. I won't be surprised if you see them in the next 6 months. And they've gotten a price point, no subscription, just 50,000 rupees. Okay, so that's an amazing product, and that's a sign of things to come, right? So they call it large action model, not large language model. But anyway, we'll see variations of that coming out. So that's as far as the actions go. The other thing you asked about ethics, right? Like, hey, what is right for India, right? Because the US, they have a different set of political values and systems. We have a different set of values and systems. So this is where I think some of the challenges you're going to see. I think there's going to be a lot of political fallout, right? I'm pretty sure one day, some AI is going to say, Kashmir is a part of Pakistan, and that's going to cause cause riots, right? Because it doesn't know what it's saying, right? It's like, whatever data it took. So whether AI is going to have meaning or not, we don't know. But we are seeing emergent behavior, and I'll talk about emergent behavior in another call if we have time. But we're seeing emergent behavior where I can't tell the difference, whether it is actually smart or whether it's just like guessing. Okay,
Right.
it is very hard to tell the difference, and that is happening, and that is like really fascinating actually. Lastly, the one thing that I am seeing, one very big trend that I think is going to happen, is this whole notion of robotics. Right? So we have not talked about this. And robotics has always been like, yeah, whatever. But this whole notion of humanoid robots, that's what they're calling them, right? Which are very human-like. Uh, and it has been getting there and getting there. And now in the last 2-3 months, because of all this LLMs and everything, we're not seeing action there. But these two worlds are coming together. And again, I won't take too much of this call time on it. I'll see if I can point you to a link about it, where you can go, those who are watching this can go and take a look at it. But I think it's like super exciting what's happening over there. So these are
Nice.
some of the trends. There are many more trends going on, but I don't have time to go through all of them.
Sure, no problem. So I think you touched on a very interesting topic. I think let's just probably take a couple of minutes on that as well. You mentioned, let's say tomorrow there could be an AI which, let's say in India, which says Kashmir is a part of Pakistan, right? Do you think that the organization behind the training of that AI right? Is there any accountability aspect towards that, right? Will they be held accountable for anything that the AI does or does not do, right? I think that will be a important question that probably somebody building an AI might ask themselves. What if my AI does something wrong that negatively impacts a particular society? Will I be held accountable for that? Right. I think because it's very hard to trace back. I mean, back propagation, etc. It's very hard to rework how that AI made that decision. It's almost near impossible task. So, do you think that there is a factor of accountability in the future of AI?
It's an excellent question. And if you ask Sam Altman, and there was a recent interview he did with Bill Gates, so he talks about they call it interpretability or explainability. Okay, that's their term for it, and they think that they will get there. Okay, as to they think it will take like this is the hottest research area right now. Okay, so it's not there yet, but they think they will get there, and I think they will get there too because the lawyers and the government is forcing them to do that. So I think we'll see that not too far away.
Awesome. Anyways, I think we are almost out of time, but thanks a lot, Bala, for those enlightening and forward-looking perspectives on the future of AI. So as we draw this session to a close, I think it's time to open the floor to our audience. I believe there are some questions on chat, but feel free, whether your questions are about the future of AI, its societal impact, or any specific advice on navigating this landscape. Now is the moment to seek those answers. So to everyone joining us today, please feel free to post your questions on the chat. Bala is here to share his wealth of knowledge and experience with you. So let's make the most of this engaging and interactive session. So over to you, Bala. Let's just probably.
I've also posted a bunch of links, some recent links that I think people might be interesting things for people to watch. I spent a lot of time on this, so I posted a few links there. But I'm happy to take any questions if one of you can. There are lots of questions I see.
Okay.
I think I can go through. You want me to go through it and just do it myself? Be faster?
Sure, absolutely.
All right. So let me just go from the top. So Srinivas, you're asking what is the state of inference? And by the way, I don't know all the answers. I'll tell you when I know the answer and what I don't. What is the state of inference on mobile devices? It's a great question. I think we're seeing Gemini Nano 2, which is promising a fully capable model on Pixel 8, I believe. But the one person who's been completely silent in all of this is Apple. So I would highly suspect that Apple is going to come up with a small quantized model. So there are quantized models which are running. Llama 2 has been quantized, which means that basically they chop off the floating points and they give you an approximate LLM. Might not be as good. So in my view, the consumer applications are not going to take off until we have a model on the phone. And I think it's going to happen this year. I'd be very shocked if it doesn't happen. Next question, should Indian government fund a creation of a foundational model in interest of sovereign capability? I don't know if we want the government to fund or not, because then that'll come with strings. But there are a number of people, including Bhavish Agarwal, Krutrim, Sarvam, Pratyush and Vivek at Sarvam.ai, who are building foundational models with Indian sensibilities for the same reason. And I suspect there'll be another 3 or 4 at least, which will come up from India. Whether government should fund it or not, I'm not sure. I think I answered the question on Codium. Can translation be the one that can be used on an open network? English language translation to regional language? Yes, I think so. I think translation is happening. And I think we kind of touched on translation, which is going to be a big thing happening here. Tools like Harvey.ai for legal. Absolutely. I think legal law and justice is a good area for AI. It's already happening. But unfortunately, the market in India is very small for legal services. It's a $3 billion kind of market. The worldwide market, the US market is like 500 billion or something. So it's like not 500 billion, maybe 100 billion or something. So it's a very tiny market compared to the US. But I think you can do a legal tax regulatory built in India, made for the world. But India itself might be a little bit too small, but I could be wrong. Is there a production app where Beckn is being deployed? Maybe Ravi, you can take that question.
So at the moment, no, but there is an application on our experience center if probably if Dheeraj or somebody can post the link to that, where where we are demonstrating interoperability between two different types of applications, where a person who's traveling to a particular destination is able to port his order from into a retail application which also understands Beckn, and it was able to parse that order object which was created in the tourism application, and it was able to provide recommended catalogs that the application was able to search in ONDC. So there is a demo application that is available, but yes, I think I personally have not seen any production application where Beckn, AI is being used with Beckn. I think I misread the question. Is there a production app where Beckn is being used and deployed? Yes, all applications on ONDC, all applications on the network called Honest, and all applications on the UHI and Unified Energy Interface. I think that's a upcoming network. Namayatri, all of these applications are production created applications that are using Beckn as the base protocol for transaction. But I'm assuming that if you're asking about Beckn plus AI, no, I personally haven't seen any app that is using AI on top of an open network or Beckn enabled network. So that is a completely blue ocean space. Fantastic opportunities for all you folks to actually integrate AI into that. Yeah, over to you, Bala. I think there are a few more questions.
Sure. Let me just quickly run through many questions. How would data privacy play out? I do not know. Other countries are obviously taking this very seriously in the US, and there is a big battle going on, as many of you know, between New York Times and OpenAI. My experience in the US is that they will figure it out. The private markets will make it happen. India Pay, we haven't thought too much about it. I think we should be thinking about it, and this is one of the charters for People+AI is to think about things of this particular nature, so that we don't have surprise regulations later on. But I don't have a good answer for you. How will IoT and open networks play a role in AI applications? I was already generating a lot of data. So I think one is obviously as a data source. The other is instead of, again, sort of playing it back, sort of using natural language, right, to make the devices happen, whether you want to, switch off a valve or do any other action, not having to have a programmable interface, but use natural language. I would suspect to be one of the areas, but again, I'm not an expert in this, so I don't want to comment on it more than that. Compared to LLMs, how about small language models trained on specific tasks? So this is a big debate going on, right? Whether you need an LLM or not, and how big an LLM do you need? There are narrow LLMs. There are LLMs which are like with a fewer parameters that can run, which are trained on fine-tuned or trained actually on pre-trained on your own data. Can they perform better? I think the studies are saying they can perform better, so that statement is correct. But I suspect all of this will be evolving this year. This is the year to watch all of these things happen, and there's a lot of research and action going on this. How much hardware will play a big role in future of AI? What kind of edge computing? So this is a brilliant question. I think it has to go down to the edge, and this is where I think again having a smaller model or quantizing a model better. All of this is happening, right? The suspicion is that Apple, for example, will put an LLM on your phone. They will say, take all the data from your phone and train the model on the phone. And they will claim that, hey, your data is not leaving the phone, right? It's all private to you. So that'll be kind of a very good use case so that people feel comfortable using the model on the phone. And at the same time, I think there are servers which are being built. Again, if you ask Jensen, he says, don't worry, we are going to put the GPUs are going to happen. The hardware, he gave a number which I think is astounding. He says the hardware will get 1 million times more powerful than now in the next 10 years. This is what he's saying. Okay, whatever you are seeing right now, the H400s or H100s, for the same price, you're going to get a 10 to the power of 6 more compute. Okay, so he thinks compute will be cheaper than the network or storage. He says you don't even need to, when you do a Zoom call like this, he says you don't need to send all the bits, right? Like, don't even bother. It'll be more costly. Both sides, both ends will just recompute Ravi's image or Bala's picture, right? and AI can do that on the edge. That's obviously he's selling, he's peddling his product, but that's what people are thinking. Okay, that's a perspective. What's your people LLM on the edge? I think I already said. availability of technology can we find 40% impact on India, 60% other countries, mainly to the availability of technology. Can we find ways to develop technology itself? Yes, we can, and I think that is the opportunity. So I think the opportunity is to bring the rest of India into the fold, right? All of this we're talking about is only talking about maybe 300, 400 million people, 30, 40 crores. The challenge, and I think this is where Beckn is going to play a key part, is in getting the other 80 crores people into the network, right? Who we are not talking about, right? And they can, because they don't need anything. They can just speak to a computer, right? And they can just look at the pictures like they're doing today with the YouTube or whatever, and they should be able to transact within that. And that, I think, is the opportunity. So that's what personally excites me, honestly. People+AI, that's our charter, is to find ways to develop the technologies that we can bring to other people. Whether we are building a hardware device, for example, for a Kirana store, you can buy a simple dumb device which can be the chotu in the Kirana store, that can do everything that the Kirana store can MSME can want, right? Generate invoices, right? Do inventory, right? Everything that it should be able to do just by talking to it in Hindi. So sorry, a lot of questions. I'm kind of rushing through it. I hope I'm making some sense here. What are your views on starting an awareness? Somebody asked about, should I convince my management or should I just go ahead? I think you should just go ahead. The thing is moving too fast to be able to convince people and all that. I think you should start tinkering on your own, is what I would advise. What can be a starting point for increasing the awareness journey on your AI? I think it's a difficult task to convince other people, but you should. This is one of those changes which is, it's kind of like electricity, right? When it was first invented, people were like, yeah, bulbs are cool, but there were no grid, right? There were no switches, there were the safety mechanisms, whatnot, that people are getting electrocuted. So it took a while for the grid to develop, and then electricity became inevitable. So we are in the light bulb moment. So we have invented light bulb, but in order for the electricity is a bigger story. GPT is the light bulb, right? So it's kind of shiny, it's beautiful. It suddenly made night come alive. But the bigger story is electricity, which is going to take some time. But that is what is happening, and you should convince your management to adopt it, or at least tinker with it. Everybody should be tinkering with it. Sorry, am I addressing all the questions? Is there anything more? Ravi, there are a couple of questions for you.
I think most, some of them are around Beckn. I think I would probably not address them on this call. I would probably, suggest you guys reach out to me on Discord. I would be happy to answer any questions on Beckn. Any other questions on AI? I think, which AI passing the Turing test, will people trust anyone on the web?
So this is the deep fake thing that everybody in the government is talking about. I agree. It's kind of like a crazy time. And these are social issues, which I think outside the syllabus of this particular call, but People+AI, we're trying to at least think about something like this. We don't have an answers, obviously.
I think we're almost. I think we are pretty much out of time. I think let's probably wrap this session to a close. But I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to you, Bala, for your valuable insights, and all of you in our audience for your engaging questions and participation. It's interactions like these that enrich our understanding and push the boundaries of what's possible in the realm of AI. If today's discussion has sparked your interest and you're eager to delve deeper into the world of AI, Beckn, and its infinite possibilities, I have an exciting invitation for you. Join us at the Beckn Open Collective. It's our thriving community dedicated to the exploration and advancement of Beckn Protocol, and now it's also exploring AI as a powerful new layer inside our own entire ecosystem. This is a space where ideas will flourish, collaborations are born, and the future of AI is shaped by collective intelligence and the shared enthusiasm. So do not miss this opportunity to become part of this community that's at the forefront of innovation. Whether you are a seasoned professional, a budding entrepreneur, or simply an AI enthusiast, the Beckn Open Collective is where you can connect, learn, and contribute to the exciting journey of artificial intelligence. Thanks a lot, all of you, once again, for joining us today. Stay curious, stay inspired, and I look forward to seeing you all at the Beckn Open Collective. Good night, everyone, and take care until our next rendezvous at Beckn and Beyond. Thanks a lot, Bala. Good night.
Thanks a lot, Ravi. Thanks, everybody. My pleasure.
Bye, guys.